think that what is being proposed, from what I understand, is that they want to cut the police force by another 20, which includes 6 current vacancies, right? And so the number's going to drop from, it was I think 210 in 2008 to 162. And they're supposed to save, they said, Brad, 1.6 million from the cuts of the police force, and then the fire department. They're talking about cuts there too, which are supposed of 20, which is supposed to cut, I think, 2.2 million. So I'm wondering if there's a real benefit here, if there's concerns about safety here. I mean, with these major cuts.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in police staffing or fire staffing, but it would seem 20% or 20 firefighters being lost would affect public safety. Again, I'm not an expert in that.
Right.
But there are ways, instead of cutting positions, there are ways to cut the expense of the department.
Okay.
What it would involve is shifting, I'm going to go into some accounting talk, so I apologize.
Good.
But it's shifting some of the money from other funds, like the IT fund and the fleet fund, shifting some of those expenses that the fire and the police pay to those departments. If you cut those in half, I projected that you could save in both of those departments about $1 million.
Oh, okay. And so where do those numbers come from that you say we can cut half, you know?
The city has a lot of information on the data catalog. If you go to the main website, there's a small link to the data catalog. There's plenty of reports. It's not always the easiest to look at, but there are transfers. There's a line item transfer to an IT fund. About $1.2 million is budgeted for the police. I think it's about $300,000 for the fire. So if you cut that in half, then you would save those two departments about $800,000. The fleet is about half as much, so you could save about $1 million. One could say that you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, because what if the IT department really needs the money for critical computer or technology? But looking at the fund balances, it's my understanding that they have about $6 million in IT and about $7 million in fleet services. So if you reduce that for maybe a year or two, this is just a temporary fix, but a year or two, then there's still sufficient money in those two funds for those to function.
I see. And so you had to dig to find this, did you?
Yeah, the information's there, but a little bit of analysis. You got to put things together, look at the detail, look at the big picture, but it's there.
So in the presentations that we've seen that have been shown to us, like at CTN and ones that happen at council, do we ever see these numbers? We don't see these numbers coming up in the list of revenue or you know, recurring costs or anything. We don't see these numbers of what you're talking about for IT and for fleet and everything, do we?
I was here for the presentation, and I didn't hear anything about those, no.
Okay, I'm asking because if council people have to make decisions, I think they need information and in order to make decisions, and that's what I was looking for, to see if that information has been brought out, and apparently it hasn't. Karen, do you have other ways that we can?
Well, one of the things I want to add is on staffing, safety services staffing. There in my file of things, I have a February 10th, 2005 press release from the city. That was when Dan Oates was safety services director. And he said the fire department, you know, in '01 at the high point, it was 126 people. It was then going to shrink to 94. He said that was the minimum staffing level he needed to keep us safe. The proposal now to lay off 20 people would drop that to 74. On the police department, he said that for sworn officers, there were more than 298, 155 in '05, and 149 in '06. I think the proposed cuts were dropping that to maybe 112, 115. So that's alarming.
Right, and it seems to me, yeah.
The other thing I looked at, when you're talking about cuts and cutting people, it's important to know that it's spread equally. So we've all seen this chart of the full-time positions and the high point. So if I take the high point and what is proposed for fiscal year 11, police are down 25%, fire 35%, the city attorney only 7%, the courts 8%, and IT is up 21%. Now that doesn't seem to me like an equivalent cut. If we can get along with that many fewer of our basic safety services people, why can't we cut the IT department? Why can't we get along with fewer city attorneys?
So once again, I'll ask the same question to you. When there are the presentations to the citizens and to council, where have we seen this? I mean, I don't remember hearing this information that
You
you're
have
giving
never
us.
seen it.
We have never
You
seen
have
it.
to dig it out. I dug this out.
So would you even know to ask? Would council members even know to ask? I mean, this makes a whole new ball game, doesn't it?
My experience has been if they ask and you're a council member in the minority opinion, you don't get an answer.
Okay. So how, to a very basic thing, if you're not an accountant, like you do, I mean, how would council, people on council, know to ask these questions? Have the numbers gone up? Have they gone down? Can you cut IT? I mean, how does one know? How can council give an educated input into the budget?
Go to caucus and listen to the public. I mean, that's their staff. I mean, that's the outlet. And I know you've been to caucus, I've been to caucus.
Right, Brad's
and then
been
you
to
have
caucus.
to listen, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and if you don't have to be an accountant to just look at the numbers. Yeah, your eyes glaze over a little bit, but it's an important issue. People's lives are potentially at stake. The health of the economy, the local economy, the future of the city, it's all at stake. And if you just spend a little bit of time, sort the numbers out and say, what's the biggest priority? Do we need safety services and fire and community development? Or do we need increases in the clerk department, in human resources, in IT, in the attorneys? I mean, if you kind of prioritize where you want to spend your money, then the answers kind of pop up.
I see. All right. So the way that these can be, the cuts in, before we get to the DDA, if that doesn't come through,
Okay.
which we think it will, but before, what you're saying they could have cut IT? What, tell me again, fleet?
Yeah, there are
Some other things that they could have cut?
yeah, there's some what they call internal service funds.
Okay. Municipal charges? No?
Yeah, those are charges to other departments to cover
Yes.
things like that. And while I'm looking for the figures, one of the areas that has definitely gone up is the amount paid to debt.
Yes.
It's been going up about $1 million
yes.
a year.